Hey there, this is John Barton from JB Cases. So doing another quick video here. Sorry, let me get that down a little bit right there. There we go. Okay, I'm doing a quick video here because, you know, I see so many inaccurate statements online. People just like, I don't know where this comes from, but I guess they just think that if they think something, then it must be true. I don't know. You know, I don't know why this comes about, but the latest thing is, not the latest, it's something that has come up a bunch of times, and I've debunked it a bunch of times, but I'm going to do it again, you know, just make another video on this. So there's a discussion about the comparison between one particular brand of case and our particular brand of case, and inside that discussion is a discussion of the two different interior types. So the interior type of one of the brands has tubes like this that you can see. So it's fixed tubes here, and basically the Q goes in loosely in here. So the Q goes in like this. So you can see that it's loose and it's easy to slide in and out. So if I do this, you can see it slides easily. So the comment that was made is, I don't like, this was the comment, you know, I'm quoting, and I quote, I don't like the padded type interiors because the friction wears the finish down on the Q. That's the statement that was made. And I just have to ask, where's your evidence of this? Like, do you have any evidence whatsoever of that? Because I don't think you do. You know? So this is the fabric. This is the fabric that we use. It's a very soft fabric. The fabric is not as hard as the finish on the Q. So if you take the Q here and I asked you, I said, will you clean your Q with it? You would easily grab it and you'd wipe off all the oils and everything and you wouldn't worry about it. And you just do that and you wouldn't care. You know, because it would be obvious that this fabric cannot hurt this finish. I just don't see how it would be possible. You could grab this as hard as you want to, you know, as hard as you can hold it, and you could do this. You could literally do this all weekend, and you will never, ever hurt the Q. All you're doing is polishing the finish when you do that. So, number one, there's just no way that the friction, you know, of putting this into the case like this, there's no way that that wears down the finish at all. You know, somebody else posted, you know, maybe in 100 years, you know, I'm going to lose like 0.000001 thousandth millionth of an inch of finish off, you know, like, you know, maybe I'll lose like 1% of a hair's width of finish. But, you know, honestly, that's all this is. It's just padded material like that. That's what's holding the Q, just like that in our case. So I'll show you. This is it. This is the interior. See? So when you put a Q inside, what happens? You put a Q inside and watch. This is what happens. It's inside a nice padded sleeve. It has double padding right here, single padding up to about right here, and then a double layer of padding right here, double layer of padding down here, single layer through the center. So basically, you're just talking about the Q being held literally like this, gently, held in suspension, padded. So now I ask you this, dear internet, I ask you this, right? If you take this and you put it into, so once again, I'm going to show you the interior here. This is a plastic tube. It's a big plastic tube. The tube itself is engineered to be tough. So you take the interior, put it in the tube, back up so you guys can see this. Doesn't matter which direction you put it in, but I like to have the logo towards the back. So now, that's the interior inside. That's the cue inside. So now you'll notice there's very little movement. There's no movement there. So what friction is there? So imagine how many times a day do you actually put your cue in and out of your case, right? Once a day, a couple times a day maybe. And then once it's in there, it just sits there. There's not a lot of excess movement. You can move it. I mean, like if I take this and I bang it, like let's say, well here, I'll do this. Give me 1 second here while I zip this up. Okay, so I'll do this, right? I'm going to go like hard with it. Now it moved. So that's where it's at right now, right? With that kind of force, that's what happens. So even at that though, what did we do? Didn't even do anything, right? Didn't do anything to the lid or anything like that. So normally it's just going to sit like that. If it's in your car, it's bouncing around, you know, it's moving or jostling or whatever. It's barely moving, if at all, right? If at all. Now, you take a case with an interior like this one, a tube interior, right? You put this in there, and then now you ask yourself if this is moving, because you can see how it moves, how easily it moves, right? You can see that I can do this and it moves out so easily. Right? Now ask yourself, if both of these cues, if both of these cases are in a similar situation, call it, let's say, a car ride, right? Let's say it's in a car ride where you've got frequent stops and starts, you've got frequent turns, and so on, you know, where centrifugal force is acting on the cue. Which of these two cases is going to allow more cue movement in that situation? The answer is this one. This one is going to allow the cue to move like this, up and down. So you can see it's got oscillation movement here. And that doesn't feel like a lot to you. You know, if you look at this right now, that doesn't feel like a lot. But you imagine when it's bump, 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 bump all the time, da 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 da, you know, back and forth. See, I'm afraid I'm going to like bust the phone. I mean, what do you think about that? You know, so if you're worried about friction bothering the finish, then really you should be worried more about what allows the cue to slide and do this. You know, what's allowing the cue to do this and slide back and forth, as opposed to being held like this, very gently. This is it when you're riding. Just like that. No matter what orientation the case is in, this is what you've got. As opposed to this. You know? Think about that for a minute. So, I mean, that ought to be just common sense by itself. You don't need a scientific study to understand that if something is rubbing more and more often, if friction can harm the finish, then friction will be more present in a case that allows more sliding and more movement. I mean, isn't that clear to people? So I don't get it. You know, I don't get it. I mean, I don't understand why people would think that if you put this in like this, that in a gentle, with it being surrounded by foam rubber, gentle foam rubber, that is somehow harmful to the cue's finish. And this is not. This is the pin, right? Listen. Listen. You know, guys, I don't really know how to explain it to you any better than this. I don't know what to tell you. You know, like, I see these comments on the internet when people ask a question, which they can. You know, people can ask whatever they want. Obviously, if I'm trying to decide between two brands of cases, of Q cases, then I'm going to ask the internet, hey internet, what do you think? And then there's going to be people who are going to answer, and they're going to say, I like brand A because of XYZ, and I like brand B because of XYZ, and brand A is better than brand B, or brand B is better than brand A. You know, I mean, and then they're going to give their reasoning for that, and that's okay. People can do that, but people also need to accept correction. And they need to accept when they make statements that are not backed up by evidence. Think about that for a minute. You know, they're making statements that aren't backed up by evidence. So if a guy tells you, if he goes online and he says, XYZ interior is no good because it harms the finish of the Q, right? And that is absolutely not true. The guy has no evidence to back it up, but yet people believe him. Why? I don't know, because he made a statement on the internet. Then it means that all the cases with XYZ interior are now off limits for anyone who believes the guy's statement. So what's the purpose in that? What's the purpose of getting on the internet and giving out information that you don't even know whether it's true? It just sounds reasonable to you, you know? But you don't have any evidence to back it up, but you're willing to say something that is just simply not true, or that you cannot prove, just to say something? I mean, I don't know, you know? But it really sucks, because if someone believes you and it cuts them off from actually getting a really good case that's better suited towards their needs, then I think that's terrible, in my opinion. And by the same token, right, if the other type of interior would actually cause some kind of damage to the finish from allowing it to slide more, would that person feel bad if they gave bad advice? Like, no, of course not. They're never going to take responsibility for the advice they give. They're never going to go and say, well, you know what, shit, I told these people to buy this type of, to stay away from that interior and go for the other interior. And now I realize that, yes, in fact, the other interior is more dangerous to a Q. It's less protective, right? And then if a Q does get harmed, hey, sorry, you shouldn't have listened to me. I'm just some random guy on the internet, right? I mean, think about that, guys. Really. You know, when you're out there making statements about someone's product, please try to make sure that you're being actually factual and you know what the hell you're talking about and that you can back it up. Because a guy like me who makes the products that are being talked about, I personally am not going to take it well if you make a statement about the product that I make that is simply not true, and I'm going to answer it. And that's why I'm making this video. So there we go.